How's it going, everybody? I am ZBilbs and I'm back here today with another band albums ranked. And today, since Patient Number 9 just came out for Ozzy Osbourne, I am following that up with my Ozzy Osbourne albums ranked video. So, Ozzy has released technically 13 studio albums. I'm gonna be ranking 12 of them. I'm not gonna do undercover. I'm gonna keep the cover stuff out of it, just original Ozzy work. I've ranked Ozzy's albums before, so you can check out on my channel. Maybe I'll put a link in the description for the other one. And you can see that these are going to be wildly different. I ranked it about a year ago, and since my tastes have changed, how I've ranked a few things has changed. One added thing that I've tried to stay consistent to certain rules I've made for myself, one of which is I don't add bonus tracks. I want to put them all against each of them, how they came out. And so for a few of these albums, I'll try to say when they were ranked a little bit too high or maybe too low, because I included bonus tracks. Some were out of place for other reasons, definitely some for just recency bias or just me being stupid, but either way, it's re-ranked. Opinions will change, so maybe I'll re-rank this again if Ozzy ever comes out with a new album. But I'm gonna also try to keep this as concise as possible. I've been having pretty long videos lately, and I feel like viewer retention doesn't hang on to that too much. But yeah. Either way, let's just jump into the rankings. So, starting off at number 12, I have got No Rest for the Wicked. So, this is probably a pretty unpopular opinion. This was the first album that featured Zakk Wylde, and a lot of people tend to really enjoy this album. I am not one of them. While re-listening through all of these albums, my opinions for most of these albums actually went up, believe it or not, including this one. That being said, there wasn't any songs that I didn't like when I originally listened to this through that I like now. Just the two songs that I like from this album I enjoy even more now, that being Tattooed Dancer and Demon Alcohol in particular. I think that's a genuinely classic Ozzy song. Everything else is just boring for me. There's just, Zakk Wylde is as great as ever, but there's just no interesting hooks or lyrics or choruses from there. There's just very, very little that sticks with me. Overall, not a bad album, but easily my weakest Ozzy album. Moving on to number 11. This is an album that I had in last place, and it was last place by a wide margin last time, and this one has grown on me significantly, and that is Scream. Now, this album, this was like a massive black sheep for me. For one, this saw the departure of Zakk Wylde, who might be my favorite Ozzy guitarist. I mean, it's close. I mean, Randy Rhoads is a legend. But Gus G, like, he's a fantastic guitarist. Maybe it's just the fact that, I've gotten into, like, Dream Evil. I've heard a little bit of Firewind, but Gus G is just, he's really freaking good, and honestly probably one of the most underrated guitarists, at least that Ozzy has had. And even throughout, there's a lot of kind of bland filler tracks in this album. Gus G is just consistently great throughout this album. Now, the one song that I think is spectacular on this album is Let Me Hear You Scream. That one is just great. But when I first listened to this album, that was the only song I really liked. But re-listening to a handful of others stuck out with me a little bit. Soul Sucker, Digging Me Down, and Time, I think, are all solid songs. Besides that, there is a lot of just filler, just boring crap on there, which is why this album isn't any higher. But honestly, not a terrible album, at least a lot better than I had it last time. So that's Scream coming in at number 11. All right, next up at number 10, this is roughly the same area that it was last time, and that is Osmosis. This is an album, like most albums, that has actually gone up a little bit. I've discovered some more songs that I've enjoyed, but I still think this is generally a relatively mediocre Ozzy album. This might be the heaviest Ozzy album, actually. Zakk Wylde is just fantastic in this album. But just because something's heavy, just because Zakk Wylde is great, doesn't mean that everything is great, and I think that's generally the case. I think there's just weak songwriting and just, I don't know, just a general like it factor that other albums has. It has some absolutely great tracks though. Perry Mason is one of the best Ozzy tracks ever made, just hands down. It's got some other solid ones like See You on the Other Side, My Jekyll Doesn't Hide. When I listened through it again, some other ones that stood out, I Just Want You and Thunder Underground. Thunder Underground might be like the heaviest Ozzy song ever. Not a fantastic song, but still pretty good. But it's very hit or miss on the songs. Half are decent, half are just kind of throwaway. So overall, that makes just kind of a, all right album. So that's Osmosis at number 10. Moving on to number 9, these two kind of go together. So there's Osmosis, and then I've got next up Down to Earth. These two, honestly, they're I could flip them around. They're practically identical. This feels like Osmosis too. I think just the songwriting, I give the edge to Down to Earth just by a bit. I think there's just more strong tracks than Osmosis has. It doesn't reach the heights of Perry Mason, but it's a little bit more consistent. But both of these are kind of just like, they're all right albums. The one great song from this album is definitely Facing Hell. That's an absolute banger. It's a classic. Dreamer is one of actually my favorite of like more the slower ballad songs. Gets Me Through is also a nice ballad. Running Out of Time is a decent song. Besides that, once again, it's pretty hit or miss. There's a handful of filler. So Down to Earth, it's a good track. It's a little better than Osmosis in my opinion, but those are practically interchangeable. So that's Down to Earth at number 9. All right, now it's time for one of my first radically different spots than my last ranking, and that is Ordinary Man at number 8. Now, last time I had this at number 4, which looking back, that was ridiculous. Now I stand by that this is a very underrated album. This has got actually some really good stuff in it, especially for, once again, the age and the era that Ozzy's been in lately. This has got some good stuff, just all things considered. It's probably the least Ozzy of Ozzy album, but it's still got good songs despite it not really being a traditional Ozzy album. Now, I did rank this one too high. I think maybe it was a recency bias or something. One big difference is that last time I counted Take What You Want From Me in this. I really love that song, even though it's not metal, but this time I didn't include it because I'm pretty sure it's a bonus track. It's also just a straight up Post Malone track. So once you take that off, you lose one of the biggest it factors from this album, at least for me. I know most metal fans probably hate that song. But yeah, besides that song, there's still other great ones. Straight to Hell is just a nice, more classic Ozzy track. Ordinary Man, that's a good song. It's really just an Elton John song though. So like, I still think it's good though. Today Is the End is really good. Scary Little Green Men is goofy, but it's fun. And then also Under the Graveyard is another decent one. So there's still a handful of just good tracks. I think this one gets way too much flack. I think it's better than most people put it, but is it number 4? Absolutely not. It's more towards the bottom. I still think it's a decent album overall. But yeah, that's Ordinary Man at number 8. Moving on to number 7, it's another album. It has dropped a little bit for me. And that is Diary of a Madman. This is probably another controversial one. A lot of people put this maybe as their favorite. Because this and Blizzard of Oz, they're like the two, key classic Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne albums. They've got some of the most classic tracks on there. And, once again, it's just a really solid album. Obviously, Over the Mountain, probably the best on the album. Flying High Again. Tonight's a nice ballad. Diary of a Madman is a classic. Also, Sato, a lot of people love that one. I've kind of come around to that one. I didn't love it at first. I'm enjoying it a little bit more. But besides that, there's nothing incredibly standout. For me, Over the Mountain is really the only standout track. Everything else I kind of just like, but not love. So I think this album is a little bit overrated. It's still a good album, but it's just, it's very mid when it comes to Ozzy stuff. So yeah, what can you do? That's Diary of a Madman coming in at number 7. Moving on to number 6, probably another controversial spot, but now I've got the new Patient number 9. Recency bias, maybe. We'll see. Maybe this one will drop hard in the future. But if you've seen my ranking, I think this is a very good album. It's not a top tier Ozzy album. It's mid, high-ish mid. But there's some really good stuff. As I've already mentioned, I think Patient number 9 is one of my favorite Ozzy songs ever so far. It's got other good ones, Parasite, One of Those Days, 1,000 Shades, Nothing Feels Right, Degradation Rules, Dead and Gone, all good songs. It's also, once again, it's very hit or miss. It's got it's kind of bogged down by a handful of mediocre stuff. It's kind of also got the similar thing that Ordinary Man does, where it doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's kind of just throwing crap at the wall and seeing what sticks. But in the case of Patient number 9, I think the star power that it throws in here sticks a little bit better than Ordinary Man did. Whereas that one, they threw Elton John and Post Malone, and it was like, good artists, but not exactly like metal. Here, Tony Iommi, Rob Trujillo, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, you name it. And overall, they make for, it's still different. It's still very produced, very auto-tuned, but it feels a little bit more Ozzy. It feels like it fits with some of the better Ozzy stuff. And I think for the time that it came out and all of that, it's really nice. I enjoy this album quite a bit. So that is Patient number 9 coming in at number 6. All right, coming in at number 5, I have got The Ultimate Sin. This is one that it seems like people kind of love it or they hate it. For me, I'm definitely more towards the love it camp. Last time I had this ranked at number 2, so it's dropped a little bit, but I still like it a lot. I just end up liking other ones more. My dad absolutely despises this album because this was like the glam era for Ozzy, and he just hated the glam stuff back in the day. For me, I've never experienced that sort of era, so I have no prejudice against glam stuff. And honestly, Jakey Lee, with this and Bark at the Moon, he's got some of the most just fun, energetic, just fast-paced, awesome riffs that just Ozzy stuff has in general. So if you can look past the glam stuff, I think there's a ton to enjoy about this album. But yeah, some of my favorite tracks, The Ultimate Sin title track is absolutely a classic. It's awesome. My favorite from the album, probably Shot in the Dark. That's another absolute classic. Other good, lesser celebrated ones. Secret Loser, a little bit goofy, but kind of fun, kind of like this whole album. Never Know Why is a decent one. Killer of Giants is decent. And then Never is also up there with some of the best. Probably one of the most fast-paced, just best guitar riffs out of just any Ozzy track ever. It's the guitar work by Jakey Lee and Never is absolutely spectacular. So Ultimate Sin, it's glam, it's goofy, but it's freaking awesome. That's coming in at number 5. Moving on to number 4. Now we're getting to another controversial one because I've got Black Rain. Now I loved this album when I first ranked this, and it was at number 7, and I've just continued to love it and love it more. This is one of those albums that people love to hate, and I am continually confused why people hate this so much, because like Osmosis, it's probably one of the heaviest Ozzy albums out there, but whereas Osmosis lacked that it factor and those interesting choruses to go along with the heavy stuff, I think Black Rain has the interesting choruses, the interesting subject matter to go along with those just excellent, excellent heavy riffs. Now, why this isn't higher, because this has genuinely got like 3 or 4 tracks in here are in my top 10 Ozzy songs of all time. This is definitely a hit or miss album. Half of the songs in this album are best of the best Ozzy stuff. The other half are just filler crap. So, I mean, it's still the great stuff pushes this album up to 4th. But I guess people who hate this album, it is kind of bogged down by a bunch of garbage, but a lot of Ozzy albums are, so what can you do? But like the tracks on this album, like freaking Not Going Away, excellent. I Don't Want to Stop, fast paced, just bang fest. And then my three absolute favorites, just freaking spectacular tracks: Black Rain, the title track, Countdown's Begun, and The Almighty Dollar. That one in particular is my favorite on the album. Just those 5 tracks alone, just so unbelievably good, and it just holds this album up so good. So if y'all hate Black Rain, just go back and listen to those 5 tracks alone, and those tracks make this album for me in general. So Black Rain, incredibly underrated album, and that's what I've got at number 4. Moving on to number 3, now we get into the top tier stuff, and at number 3 I have Blizzard of Oz. I had this at number 6 last time, and oh, what a fool I was. I have wisened up a bit. Although most people kind of put this near Diary of a Madman, I think Blizzard of Oz just, it's more iconic. It has more, I don't know, longer lasting, impactful tracks, if you will, in there. And even tracks I didn't love last time have even grown on me a little bit. Obviously, tracks in here, most people will say they're overrated, but most people will also say, or not overrated, overplayed. I don't think they're overrated. But yeah, Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley, like the 2 heavy hitters from here. Mr. Crowley maybe has like one of the best guitar solos freaking ever in there. Randy Rhoads is a master. I Don't Know is classic. Suicide Solution, classic. And a Goodbye to Romance also. I didn't love that one at first. That one's also decent. The other 3 are kind of like No Bone Movies. What the heck is that? But this is just, it's the definition of a good Ozzy album. It's moved up for me. I feel like I've always liked this album, but even as time has gone, this one has just gotten better and better. And I can see why most people put this as their favorite Ozzy album. Not quite my favorite, but still an absolutely excellent album. All right, next up at number 2, I have got No More Tears, probably the best of the Zakk Wylde era Ozzy albums. This is another one that's considered a classic, and for good reason. I mean, No More Tears, the title track, amazing. Mama, I'm Coming Home, Mr. Tinker Train, other lesser celebrated ones. Desire is great. Hellraiser, that one is great. I mean, Lemmy has some good work in here, and he did a rendition of Hellraiser, and that's a great one. Other new ones that I've come around to lately, Won't Be Coming Home or Sin, that's a good track. One kind of iffy track that's just kind of fun is Zombie Stomp. That one's just kind of goofy fun, but really consistent album. Awesome guitar work, catchy, iconic songs, not really much more to say. No More Tears is No More Tears. It's spectacular. It's pretty close to number 1. But my number 1 is the exact same that I had last time, and that is Bark at the Moon. A relatively unpopular pick for people's favorite Ozzy album, but this is definitely, when it comes to just, I don't know, good, really top tier tracks and just really consistent quality, I think Bark at the Moon has both. I mean, the title track, Bark at the Moon, is one of the best, if not the best Ozzy track of all time. Also, a more underrated, lesser celebrated one, but Waiting for Darkness, I think, is almost just as good as Bark at the Moon. It's also spectacular. It's got a handful of other like solid songs. You're No Different, Center of Eternity, So Tired, that's like an alright ballad. Spiders is another just fun, eerie one. Slow Down, that one is just kind of dumb fun. So this, it's just got a lot of just really solid songs, some really heavy hitter songs, just very little filler. Just the most consistent in quality, in my opinion, throughout. And it's got also just a good solid size of just good songs. I also just love just the spooky atmosphere. That's just kind of like my thing. It's one reason I really love, Fear the Dark for Iron Maiden. Just that consistent kind of spooky vibe that you get from Bark at the Moon, Waiting for Darkness, Spiders, stuff like that. it just really does it for me, and that's why it gives Bark at the Moon the edge for me. But yeah, that's Bark at the Moon. That is coming in at number 1 for me. So y'all, let me know, what did you think of this list? Rank the Ozzy albums in the comments. Let me know what albums you'd like to see me rank in the future, what bands. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see. I'm going to be probably reviewing and ranking the Slipknot albums when their new album comes out. But yeah, if you liked, please like and subscribe and all that. But that's all I got for you. I'll see you later.